Okay, so today we're going to be looking at how to shuffle an array. So I'm going to start here with a simple um, playground. I'm going to call it shuffling array example. Okay, great. So how do we start here? Well, let's go ahead and make that big again. Perfect. So the first thing is we could get rid of this and we'll get rid of this as well. Okay, fantastic. So what do we start off with? Well, let's go ahead and create two arrays here. First one I'm going to call array 1, and let's make it of type string, and we're going to populate the array with a bunch of strings. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that's enough. Let's do one more. 6. I just want to show you, I just want to have enough as an example. So here I've got an array of, well, 7 elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 elements. Obviously I started with 0 because arrays are 0 indexed. So I've got an array of 7 elements with strings 0 to 6. I'm going to create another array here called array 2, and it's also of type string, except this array here is empty. Okay, great. So I've got an array that has 7 elements and their strings, and another array that's empty. The question is, how do I take the elements from this array and put them in this array in a randomized manner? Sort of shuffle this array onto this array. There's a few ways you could do this. Here's an easy way, just using a simple for loop. Before we do that, let's go ahead and create two variables and explain what these two variables are in a second. So this is a variable that I'm going to create for the random generator called upper limit, and I'm going to create a variable called randomly generated number to store my randomly generated numbers. Okay, so what are we going to do here? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a for loop, and it'll iterate 7 times. Well, why 7 times? Well, we've got 7 elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 elements. So we'll iterate this 7 times. And what we're going to say is, we're going to say, well, the first thing we have to do is randomly generate a number. So I'm going to go randomly generate number equals int, and I'll explain what I just did here in a sec. And I'm going to put upper limit here. And I think I'm missing a bracket here. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So what I've done here is I've called up this function right here built in Swift, which randomly generates numbers. And in here you could put a number. So here, I'm going to delete this for a second. I'm going to say 7. If I were to put 7 here, this is the upper limit. So what happens here is this random generator will generate a number from 0 to 6. This is the upper limit. It never reaches the upper limit. If I were to put 150 in here, it would randomly generate a number from 0 to 149. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now, instead of putting a number in here, I'm going to put the variable called upper limit that has the number 7 in it, which essentially I'm saying 7. Now, something to note here, this variable here is of type uint32. This function right here does not take integers. If I were to create a variable of type int and put a 7 in here, this would not work because that's just the way the function's built, that this upper limit takes a uint32 type. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, listen, randomly generate a number from 0 to 6 because this is a 7, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Take that number, whatever the randomly generated number is, convert it to a regular int, and then store it in this variable called randomly generated number. So if I go down here, I'm gonna, let's just to experiment here. If I go down here and I do this here, it'll tell me that it randomly generated the number 0. If I go ahead and do this again, 5. If I run this again, it should be a different number. No, it randomly generated 5 again, I guess. 2. If I do this again, 3. It's randomly generating numbers. 0. And so on and so forth. It is pretty much random. 0 again. Let's do it one more time. 1. And so on and so forth. So I'm randomly generating numbers here. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that back in here. So that's the first step. I'm randomly generating a number, converting it to type int, and putting it in this randomly generated number variable. Now that I have randomly generated numbers, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say array2 dot append, and the append function essentially adds something to your adds an element to your array, and instead of putting in here the actual string that I want to add, I could say, you know, add something, right? I could add this. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put in array1, and I'm going to put in the element that we randomly generated here. Boom, just like that. So let's assume this random generator in this case randomly generated the number 3. Okay, so it converted it to a number, put it in the randomly generated number. What I'm saying here is take array2, append, that means add this element to it. Which element? Go to array1 and put in this element. Well, what element is a randomly generated number right now? We said 3. So element 0, 1, 2, 3. So right now we've just added the number, this element to array2, which is 3. So we're going to do that for 7 times. The problem is I want to take everything at, well, it's not a problem. What I want to do is I want to take all the elements out of here and put them in here. So what I have to do is I have to say, listen, array1 dot remove at, and this is simple. Instead of putting an int, I'm going to say randomly generated number. So what I'm doing is, if we go back to our example, the 3 here, I'm taking the 3, putting it in here, and then I'm removing it from the first array. Now I've got an error here which will go away once I add this upper limit minus equals 1. The reason I was getting this error is because once I removed an element from here, there's one less element in this array, except the random generator is still randomly generating from 0 to 6. So now I'm decrementing the limit by 1 every single time the loop goes. So now it starts off with 7, then it goes to 6, then 5, then 4, then 3, then 2. And the reason being is because this array is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's pretty much it. Now, to prove that everything has been shuffled, if you may, all I have to do is print this to the console. I'm going to print array2. And if we print array2, you'll see that it's got all the elements. I'm also going to print array1 actually, just to show you that it's empty. Because it should be empty. So if I print array1 right here, it's empty. Oh. And array2, 6, 5, 0, 3, 1, 2, 4. If I go ahead and re-execute a playground, this should be different. 6, 1, 0, 2, 5, 4, 3. Again, it's different. So if I do this again, 0, 1, 4, 6, 2, 3, 5. I re-execute 6, 3, 0, 5. Different order every single time. So in essence, it's reshuffling the array every single time it executes. And that's how you do a simple shuffle routine with really just a simple 4-line if statement with 2 variables up here. Pretty easy stuff. Thank you for watching.